2 years ago, but has recently returned to the spotlight. So Frida watches an interview where he reveals that in the last 2 years, he's bought an island where he grows his own food and wears the same clothes every day, implying that he's changed from his infamous partying ways. Then, the interviewer asks later about his critics calling King Tech's recent philanthropic efforts performative, and he says that he doesn't expect forgiveness from anyone, but still offers a sweeping apology for everything he's done in the past. Suddenly, Frida's best friend and roommate, Jess, opens the bathroom door to ask for her lighter and money to pay the super. Moments later, she grabs the cash she hid behind the mirror, looks at her reflection, and exasperatedly says that she needs a vacation. That evening, the woman, who works as a cocktail waitress, shows up at the annual King Tech Gala where her manager reminds her to refrain from chatting up the guests, a mistake she made last year. Soon, Jess arrives, and a passing coworker asks to borrow her lighter, prompting the woman to consider writing her name on the object because of how people keep taking it. Frida mentions that she knows the friend snuck out last night to meet up with her ex-boyfriend. She adds that doing so shows that Jess keeps giving the man all the power in their complicated relationship, and the latter says she's scared of being alone. When the MC calls Slater to the stage, the mesmerized waitress accidentally spills champagne on a guest's dress. Minutes later, Jess teases her friend for sneaking a peek at the handsome billionaire. Soon, they secretly ditch their uniforms and change into dresses so they can mingle with the crowd. When they try to enter the private area, Slater's bodyguard, Stan, stops them. However, Frida walks toward the private area, but she slips and takes down a waiter with her. The woman cuts her finger on the broken glass, and to her surprise, the billionaire approaches and helps her up. Because she broke one heel during the fall, the man snaps the other one off so her shoes are even. Then, Stan hands her a band-aid to cover the cut on her finger, and she thanks him. Moments later, Slater introduces Frida to his therapist, Rich, and she jokingly tells the older man to blink twice if he's in danger, and he cheekily plays along. Soon, the billionaire introduces the party crashers to his childhood friend, Cody, King Tech CFO Vic, Heather, Camila, Stan, Tom, and Lucas. When she meets Sarah, the woman compliments her nails but seemingly doesn't appreciate how she caught Slater's attention. For the rest of the night, the pair parties with the billionaire and his friends. Eventually, the man's assistant, Stacy, reminds him that they need to leave soon. So he tells Frida that he and his pals are heading to his private island for a few days, and he wonders if she and Jess might like to come along. Soon, the group takes Slater's private jet to the tropical paradise, and they eventually arrive at the lavish villa. Before entering the house, Stacy collects all of their phones, which Jess thinks is strange. Then, Vic tells everyone to stand on the steps so he can take a group photo using his Polaroid camera. When she enters her room, Frida smells the fresh flowers on the table, and the billionaire says there are clothes in the closet that she can use. Before he leaves, the man thanks her for coming. After washing up, the woman sees a perfume bottle on the sink labeled Desideria, and she sprays it on herself. She opens a drawer and finds a lip gloss tube but realizes that it's expired. On the bed, she sees that someone laid out the clothes for her. Suddenly, she hears a noise behind her, and an old maid with a snake tattoo on her arm calls her Red Rabbit and touches her cheek. Confused, Frida doesn't know what she's talking about, so the maid leaves. Later, Jess points out how weird it is that there are clothes for them to wear. They ask two workers where they're supposed to go, but the men just smile and continue carting away flowers. Soon, the group spends the day lounging by the pool. Frida watches Slater refilling his e-cigarette and catching a coconut that Sarah tosses toward him. Jess realizes she recognized the woman because she was on the reality show Hot Survivor Babes. Sarah expertly opens the coconut with a knife and offers the billionaire the first sip, and their flirting causes the distracted Frida to choke on a raspberry. Later, Slater takes the waitress on a tour of the property and he picks a flower off the vine. He says it's called Desideria and only grows on the island. Then, the woman shares that she thought his parties would be more over the top and outlandish with how the media described them. So he explains that since going to therapy, he's mellowed down, but admits that he still partakes in the occasional illicit substance. They pass the workers killing a lash viper, and Slater says they're having problems controlling the snake population on the island. The billionaire confides that he's working on trauma therapy with Rich because he can't remember anything before the age of 10. Frida wonders why he wants to remember awful memories, and quips that she'd gladly pay someone to help her forget certain things from her past. Seconds later, Stacy appears carrying multiple red paper bags and tells her boss that she placed his e-cigarette liquid on his desk and that the workers moved the red chair to where he wanted. That evening, the group enjoys a meal prepared by Cody, who's a chef, and they raise their glasses to celebrate Camilla finalizing the sale of her app to King Tech. While leaning over her plate, Frida stains her white dress on the rare steak, so Slater assures her that it's okay. When Vic teases the waitress about how she doesn't have direction in life, the billionaire sticks up for her by telling her to ask the CFO how he lost his pinky finger hamburger. After dinner, Vic takes out a dropper bottle and everyone ingests the hallucinogenic substance. For the rest of the night, the intoxicated group parties on the lawn. Before going to sleep next to Jess, Frida sees that the stain on her dress disappeared, but she brushes it off. The next day, Heather asks Vic about his pinky, but he quickly changes the subject. That night, they take the hallucinogenic substance again, and the 5 women playfully cover their heads with white scarves and run across the yard. For the next few days, the group follows the same basic schedule, lounging by the pool during the day and partying on hallucinogens at night. One evening, Frida sprays on the Desideria perfume and the billionaire says she smells nice. Then, he asks about the scar on the side of her face, but she says she doesn't know how she got it. Slater compliments her nails, so the woman explains that she does them herself. She adds that she specializes in animal designs, and the ones she has on right now are blue cats. Even though they were having a great conversation, Slater says he needs to go to bed because he has therapy tomorrow. As he's walking away, the waitress tries to tell him that he forgot his e-cigarette. The next morning, Frida smiles as she looks at the device in her hand. Suddenly, she notices the dirt under her fingernails and wonders how they got so filthy. Later, she gives the device back to the billionaire and Vic introduces her to Rich. The therapist offers his hand, so the waitress reminds him that they already met at the gala, and he seems taken aback by her statement. Before he leaves, Rich thanks Slater for the goodies inside the red gift bag. Meanwhile, Cody asks the other women if they've seen his missing chef's knife. Jess searches for her lighter and she sees Heather using it, and she wonders why she can't remember lending it to her. Then, the jealous Sarah disdainfully watches Frida and Slater talking in the distance. Later, the waitress asks the billionaire what day it is and he says he doesn't know. She asks when they're leaving and he says that they can leave whenever she wants, but she points out that he didn't answer her question. So, to ease her thoughts, the man wants to know if she's having fun and she says yes. That night, Jess asks the group about her lighter and Sarah finally brings it out of her pocket but swears she doesn't remember taking it. Later, while they continue the party on the lawn, Frida and the reality star vie for Slater's attention. Suddenly, they hear Jess screaming and she says a snake bit her. They spot the lash viper slithering in the grass, so the billionaire kills it with a wine bottle. The worried woman thinks she should go to the hospital, so Slater assures her that although the animal is venomous, the bite won't kill her. Later, Jess tells her friend that she feels weird and she wants her phone back. Frida thinks she just needs some sleep, so she insists that there's something wrong with the island. However, instead of listening to her friend's concerns, the nail artist begs her to understand why she wants to stay. She adds that for the first time in her life, she doesn't feel invisible. While the others continue partying, Jess stares at the night sky while her nose is bleeding. The next day, Frida discovers a hut filled with red gift bags. In a side room, she finds the old maid who offers her a swig of a mysterious yellow liquid. To her horror, she learns that the substance in the bottle was lash viper venom. As the terrified woman leaves the room, the maid repeatedly calls her Red Rabbit. Outside, she runs into Cody, and when he asks what she's doing in that part of the island, she says she got lost. That night, while the 5 women scamper across the lawn, Heather stops and asks the others why they're all running. Unable to answer her question, they all collapse to the ground in laughter. In a dream, Frida envisions a man's bare chest with a gold necklace around his neck and Jess telling her to hide a knife. The next morning, she wakes up with a nosebleed and finds dirt under her fingernails again. At breakfast, Heather says she doesn't remember cutting her bangs. Then, Lucas appears and the women point out that he has a black eye. The men propose they all go fishing, but Sarah suggests the women stay behind so they can have a day to themselves. Later, the reality star asks for the lighter, so Frida wonders where Jess is. To her surprise, they don't know who she's talking about, so the waitress runs to her friend's room, but it's just a storage area for random pieces of furniture. In the bathroom, the distraught woman tries to wake herself up, hoping she's just having a dream. She slams her hands on the mirror and Cody's missing knife falls out. Suddenly, Sarah knocks on her door and shows her the lighter with Jess's name written on it. Later, the waitress says she knew her friend was on the island and she remembers her saying that there was something wrong with this place. The reality star points out that she would have remembered if there was another person there with them, but Frida thinks it's because they're forgetting a huge chunk of their time on the island. Then, Sarah acknowledges that although she's having fun, there's a part of her that hates being there. The waitress brings up the dirt under her nails, so the reality star shows her the bruise on her arm and says that she doesn't remember how she got it. Eventually, the reality star shares that she recently met Cody at a coffee shop because he kept saying that he's friends with Slater, and they both realize how weird it is that they agreed to go to the island with men they barely knew. Sarah says the vacation was too good to be true and the men are trying to control them by making them look look crazy. She wonders how they're making the women forget, so they decide to do some investigating. In the hut, Frida finds Desideria perfume bottles inside the red gift bags, and they believe Slater incorporated the flower's special properties in the substance, which makes whoever wears the fragrance lose their memories. The reality star suggests calling the authorities, but the waitress thinks they don't have sufficient evidence to back their story. Sarah wonders why she can't recall meeting Jess, so the waitress remembers a viper bit her friend while she drank the venom. So she takes the bottle from the drawer and tells her companion to drink it. To trick Heather and Camilla into ingesting the antidote, the reality star prepares laced cocktails for them to enjoy. When Stacy appears, they encourage her to drink with him. Then, Frida sneaks into the billionaire's office to retrieve their phones, and she tells Sarah to yell out a code word so she'll know when the men arrive. Later, the reality star has a nosebleed, implying that she's slowly regaining her memory. Suddenly, Cody playfully grabs her from behind, and she elbows him on the nose, so she says she doesn't like getting tickled. In the office, Frida finally finds the phones inside a cabinet, but none of them have service. When she hears the reality star yelling the code word, she realizes the men are back, so she tries to hide the Polaroids that fell out of a box and stuff some of them under her clothes. As she looks at the pictures, she sees images of rich older men smiling and holding up red gift bags. Eventually, Slater arrives and he grabs e-cigarette juice from his drawer, but he doesn't notice the waitress hiding under the desk. Seconds later, Frida's full memories return and she remembers how the men took advantage of the women every single night and made them forget what happened by using the flower's essence in the perfume and their food. She also recalls how Slater killed Jess because her memory could no longer be erased, revealing that the men made the women believe that she was never on the island. After the waitress manages to sneak out of the office, she tells Sarah what happened to Jess, and they agree to continue playing along until Heather and Camilla regain their memories. During dinner, Frida sees the gold necklace around the billionaire's neck, and she remembers the men chasing and abusing the women. She recalls Slater telling Rich that the worse the trauma he inflicts on the waitress, the more she'll forget it come morning. He promises they'll get her cleaned up after and she'll be back to having the time of her life tomorrow. Then, Frida recognizes Lucas's perfume as Desideria and compliments him. To keep up appearances, the waitress and reality star decide to dance for the men. Sarah slyly grabs the